Good morning or good afternoon or whatever time it is that you are accessing this. This is Mrs. Patterson and Mrs. Felix from Bethune, and we are coming live at you all with our virtual teleschool. Today is week 4, day 2, and we are working on summarizing literary text. Yesterday we went through and we broke down the standard. We know that our goal is to summarize a story or a drama by restating in one's own words the most important events in the order that they happen. We also want to be able to distinguish between important and unimportant details when summarizing a story or a drama. So that is what we're working on today. And so let's dive right in. If you go ahead and pull up your Nearpod, or if you pull up your packet, we have a story called The Mix-Up. So this is what it will look like on our Nearpod, and we will be utilizing our Nearpod today to complete a graphic organizer similar to the one that we saw yesterday. But for now, I'm going to read with you all the story of The Mix-Up. Our goal this week is to summarize a story or a drama by restating in our own words and finding those differences between important and unimportant details as we go along. Today, you're going to read a realistic fiction story. So that's the genre of this story. We can kind of get a clue from that immediately because of the drawing or the illustration that's here at the title. So right there to the left, the woman on the bicycle where it says The Mix-Up, that cartoon gives us a hint that this is realistic fiction. You can also see based on the title, it's called The Mix-Up. And if you look a little bit below that, it's almost faded, but it says The Mix-Up again, but in reverse. So this is starting to make me think that this story is going to be about a girl or a woman who gets something mixed up. I'm getting that clue based on the title and based on the different images and even the way that they formatted the text in the title. So as we read this story, I want you all to read it independently. So pause the video if you need to and take the time to read through it independently. But I am also going to read it to you just in case you stumble over any words or need some help with that fluency and comprehension. But as you go through and do it independently, I want you to place a check mark above any of the confusing words or phrases that you read. Try to look inside, around, and beyond each of those unknown words that you identify, and see if you can figure out its meaning using context clues. After we're done, I'm going to check with you all by asking you 4 questions to see if you truly comprehended this. So go ahead at this time and pause the tape. And then when you the video, when you unpause, I'm going to be reading this to you. The story today is called The Mix-Up by Frank Auster. Last month, Jenna announced to her mom that she planned on taking a long bike ride around the neighborhood. In that case, her mom responded, would you please deliver these packages for me? This one is for Great Aunt Sally, and this one is for your cousin, Joey. Her mom explained that both relatives had birthdays coming up next week, and she wanted to surprise them. No problem, replied Jenna quickly. Since all of Jenna's relatives had settled in the same small town, no one lived too far away from the others. She tucked the packages in her backpack, hustled out to the garage, and grabbed her new bike. Paragraph 4. When Jenna arrived at Great Aunt Sally's house, she suddenly realized that neither package had a name on it. But she was certain that Sally's was the one in the striped wrapping paper. Or was it? Wanting to be on her way, Jenna gave her great aunt the striped package and soon dropped off Joey's present too. The following week, Great Aunt Sally invited Jenna and her mom over for lunch. Sally answered the door wearing a bright new baseball jersey. How did you know this is my new favorite team? She asked, smiling at her guest. Oh, just a guess, said Jenna's mom sarcastically. She glared at Jenna, who quickly recognized her mistake. So that is the story of The Mix-Up by Frank Auster. We took a guess, we made an educated guess or an inference at the beginning of the story that this is probably going to be about a girl that mixes something up. And we got that from the clues of the illustration that was here, as well as the title and how the title has a reflection right below it. So our goal this week is to summarize different literary texts. We just read a literary text. We just read a realistic fiction story. Now, in order for us to summarize the text, we have to first make sure that we understood what we read. So I have a couple of questions for you all. My first question: who are the main characters in The Mix-Up? I hope you said that it was Jenna, Jenna's mom, and Great Aunt Sally as the main characters. Next question: where does the story take place? So I'm asking you for our setting. Where and when is our story taking place? Perfect if you said it takes place in a small town. She mentions that they live in a small town, and that's why it's so easy for her to get around on her bike. And we know a lot of the times when we look for the setting, it's somewhere near the middle. We see right there in paragraph 3 that they settled in a small town. Next question: what does Jenna's mom ask her to do? Because this starts to get us thinking about our plot, our beginning, middle, and end, because by asking her to do something, that gives us one of our events in our story. It's something that happens that's really important that we're going to need in our summary. So what does Jenna's mom ask her to do? I would say that Jenna's mom asked her to deliver gifts to Jenna's great aunt and her cousin. You guys are doing a great job so far. Let's try this last comprehension question. Why does Jenna mix up the packages? So what is the reason behind it? What is her motivation for mixing up the packages? I hope you said that the packages do not have names on them. She gets to her aunt's house and she's like, oh man, is it the one with the stripes or without the stripes? And then she's in a rush and she forgets about it and moves on. So our goal today is to take this story of The Mix-Up and to write a summary. We're going to do this by utilizing that same story map that we saw yesterday. This story map really helps us because in order to write a summary, you have to answer those key questions: who, what, where, when, why, and how. Another way to think of who, what, where, when, why, and how is to think of who are the characters, where and when is the setting of this story, what problem happens, why does it happen, and how do they solve it. So all of those different questions help you to fill out this story map. It helps you to figure out those important details. Because as we spoke about yesterday, we know that when we are writing a summary, we are giving the important details of a story in our own words, and we want to tell it from beginning, middle to end in the order that it happened, that plot. So we're going to practice this. We're going to do this together. So yesterday I did it. Today we're going to do it. So I'm going to do part with you, and then you're going to take it from there. So I'm going to think aloud as I do this. I know that it's asking me for the characters first in this box. It gives me the setting, but I'm going to start with characters. So, in the first sentence of the story, because we want to make sure that we always go back and look for the evidence. We want to prove that we're right by going to look at the text. So in the first sentence, I see the names of two characters. It says, last month, Jenna announced to her mom that she planned on taking a long bike ride around the neighborhood. So I see Jenna and her mom. So I'm going to underline those details in my text. Like I'm going to take it, if I'm using my Nearpod, I'm going to go to my Nearpod and I'm going to find that sentence that says Jenna and her mom. And I'm going to go, okay, right there. I'm going to always look back in the text. If I have my packet, I'm going to physically underline it. But on my Nearpod, I now have thought about it, and I'm pretty positive that my characters are going to be Jenna and her mom. So I'm going to type that here, Jenna and her mom. And then I'm going to make it small enough to fit in that character's text box. Boom. And then I'm going to move that over so that I can get my answer onto my page. Perfect. So now I've figured out who my characters are. So I've got the who down pat. They've already told me where. They say that it's at Jenna's house and in Jenna's neighborhood. So now we want to figure out what's going on. What is the problem in this story? Every time we want to go back to our text. We always want to go back to our text and read. So we want to see what is the problem in the story. We already spoke through this earlier when we did our comprehension questions, and we said it became an issue that the presents were not labeled. So Jenna doesn't know who the presents go to. She's not aware of who she has to give it to because they weren't labeled. So it says she realized that neither package had a name on it. They were not labeled. So then I would go to my Nearpod and put that the problem is the presents are not labeled. So Jenna doesn't know who they go to. And then I'm going to make sure that my text box is large enough for whoever is grading this to see my answers. And perfect. Now I have another answer there. But as I said, we are doing this together this time. So I'm done there. I helped you guys with the characters. The text already gave us the settings. Now we have the problem. You are going to have to use the skills that we've gone over to figure out those major events because we only want to give those key events. So an example, we said that the characters were Jenna and her mom. In that same text, it says that Jenna announces that she is going on a long bike ride. So I know that what the character does and says at the beginning of the story is often a big part of our plot. It's one of those huge events that's going on in the story. So we see that she's going on a bike ride. Sorry. Scroll up. She's going to go on a long bike ride. So because of that, I think this detail should go in my event section. I would type that Jenna is going to go for a bike ride. But I don't think that the word long is important. So I'm going to leave that out because remember, we're trying to figure out those important details versus those unimportant details. And so the long part doesn't change our story. Whether she went on a short bike ride or a long bike ride, the story would not change. So we do not have to include it in our summary. But she has to go on a bike ride. If we didn't include that as an important event, then Jenna would never be going out to deliver anything to her great aunt Sally or to her cousin because her mother only asked her to go make a delivery because Jenna announced that she was going on her bike ride. So when you think about which events to include in this next section, ask yourself, is it important or is it unimportant? If I don't include this in the summary, is my story going to change? Or the alternate, do I have to have this in the story, or can this be left out because it's truly unimportant? So I want you to continue reading from details and finding other important information as you go along. I'm going to give you one last hint. Think about your who, what, when, where, why, and how, and that's going to help you come up with those major events in this story. Make sure that you complete the Nearpod in its entirety. So what I mean by that is you already have the think section with the story map that we just started completing. But I also want you to answer questions 2 and 3. Question 2 says, compare the details from the story that you included in your story maps. How did you decide which details are important ones? So that one you just have to talk about it. So start getting your brains flowing, put on your thinking caps and talk about why that could be, how those details are important. And then finally, your short response is to actually practice writing a short summary of the mix-up. Take all of those events that you utilize, make sure that you state who the character is, make sure that you include where the story is taking place, and then tell all of that in your own words and in the order that it happened. And you will have written a successful summary. Good luck today, guys. Make sure that you do your One Eye Ready reading lesson as well. And know that if you need any assistance from Ms. Felix or myself, we are both available through Microsoft Teams and Class Dojo. Have a great one and see you next time.